This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast, where interesting people from all walks of life sit down for a drink and a conversation. Each week, Drink O'Clock features a diverse range of guests who share their stories, expertise, and insights. Hosted by Rob Max AVV Valencias. This podcast is the perfect way to unwind and hear from some amazing people over a refreshing beverage. So, sit back, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the conversation on Drink O'Clock.
Boom. You know, I can never have an episode without something, crazy happening. And it's always technology or, basically my kids, because I'm a dog person, so they're my babies. But
your fur babies.
My fur babies. Yeah, we don't have any kids, and we probably never will. So they're our babies. But so welcome to the podcast. This is the Drink O'Clock podcast. I'm the host, Rob Valencias, and I have with me Sophy Singer. Sophy, you run Sophy Love, which is a matchmaking service that's focused on more than just kind of the Tinder swipe. Right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, tidbit on Sophy right now. She's somewhere very warm.
Yes.
And I'm somewhere very fucking cold. So I don't know if you're on vacation or just doing your thing, but if you're drinking, great. If not, it's okay. I will be the one to drink for both of us.
Have a sip. I'm in Hawaii on vacation, actually with my family, and I did enjoy a lava flow before we hopped on. So I'm all warmed up, even with the drinks and the weather.
So let's get into the nitty gritty. So your, I guess your publicist or friend,
Publicist.
the way,
yeah,
I call her the publicist because actually, when I do these different posts and things I do to get interviews, it tends to be a friend that's like, I'm the publicist, and they reach out, and I love it because one, it helps me get people on the show, but I love to hear what they say. So, and I'll tell you, and you were on the email, but so she said you focus on authentic relating.
Yeah.
So teaching your clients how to connect with every human they meet, which is based on work by Rael Castano, which I've never heard of. So maybe at some point we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Of course.
And they're the author of Authentic Relating, a guide to rich, meaningful, nourishing relationships. And the idea, I guess, is relating has totally changed your life, helping you deal with some unresolved trauma, totally changing your marriage, and you're excited to bring it to other people. So I thought that was awesome. That was kind of like your own little like tidbit to that I got to see before I even chatted with you. So talk a little bit about kind of like what got you into my first question for you is what got you into the matchmaking? Have you always been like that friend that's like, hey, I got a friend, okay, she's really cool, or he's really cool, I think you guys would be perfect. Has that always kind of been part of your MO?
Yeah, I think I've always been a connector. So I've been a connector of humans, and I have found throughout my life that my connections with people, with friends, just work, everything, my relationships, I would say have saved my life, just period, the end. And so I've always been a person that set other people up, whether it was romantically or like the moment I would be talking to someone, they're, oh, I'm looking for a job. Oh, send me your resume. I might have somebody. You know, I'm just, you know, oh, I'm going to be painting my house. Okay, let me get you in touch with my painter. You know, it's just automatically what I do. I like connecting humans. So I would say that is just part of who I am. And it's a part, I think, that developed over the years as well to really kind of help me get through life in a really like safe and nourishing way. Additionally, what kind of got me, as you asked, what got me into matchmaking specifically is my own path and journey to finding my magical other, my husband, was not easy. And I mean, I think anyone out there knows that's been dating for any amount of time that dating is not easy. It's hard. It's emotionally draining. Yeah. And it's a roller coaster and brings up all our stuff, all the unresolved stuff. And so I just became the person. Like I started going on so many dates. Online dating had just kind of become socially acceptable. This is many years ago. So we're talking like I met my husband 13 years ago and then backwards another 5 years before that. So almost 20 years ago, there was no swiping. There were only websites like JDate and Match.com and OkCupid. And I was like the only person people knew who was online dating, going on a lot of dates. So I became the go-to. People were like, oh, you need help with dating? Sophie's got this figured out. She's got all the stories. She's been doing it. And then actually, once I met my husband, that's when people actually started sending me friends and family for like guidance and coaching. And I started just date coaching. Like I started charging for it. I was helping people create their profiles and I was coaching them to help them kind of navigate through what I called like the dating trenches. And
I like long walks on the beach, staring at the moon. You're like, okay, come on, man.
No.
Be more authentic.
Right. So yeah, so people just started sending me their friends and family. I started charging them. And then eventually I did get married. I had twins. And
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're 10 and a half now. And so I was full-time working in a completely different job. I was a wholesale footwear and apparel rep. And I stopped that job in order to be able to have something that wasn't traveling, just like more appropriate for having young children at home. And I got this message from someone who knew somebody who posted that there was a matchmaking agency that was hiring. And so I was like, yeah, this sounds awesome. So I took the interview. I was hired. It happens to be one of the largest matchmaking it's probably the biggest matchmaking agency in the country. And within 3 months, I had a couple engaged. And I was like, okay, this is my jam. So
that's awesome.
So I stayed there for a few years, and then I broke off and started my own company after that.
That is freaking cool, man. And I feel like, for me, so I work in insurance, right? And I deal with a lot of people that kind of fall under the same thing. They work for the company, and then before you know it, they're doing their own thing, you know? And I think a lot of people I think a lot of the people that fail don't have the experience because they're just flying blind. And sometimes it's good to actually do the groundwork, like working for those companies or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And then moving into it. It's like you dip your toe, you kind of start to get the clientele, and then you can get into it. And sometimes people are just like, nah, I'm jumping off the deep end. And I feel like your survival chances there are a lot less when you're just, fucking jumping in.
Agreed.
Bathing suit or not, right?
Right. Agreed. Actually, and matchmaking is it's such like it's this really unique space. It's so emotionally it's like such an emotional space, right? People are coming to us very vulnerable, making an emotional and a financial investment that's pretty big. And it was such a wonderful experience to work for a large agency. I got like a macro level experience. I was managing at any point, like anywhere between 25 to 38 clients at a time. So I really matched a lot of people. Like I interviewed thousands of people. And so I really got a chance to understand how all of these scenarios could unfold. And it was great. It was wonderful experience. And I learned kind of what I liked about the way that company functioned, and also learned what I didn't like and what I wanted to do different on my own. And it's very different. Like I'm a boutique matchmaking agency. It's a much smaller operation. I have a team of, it's myself, 2 additional matchmakers, and a recruiting team of about 4 people. And then my husband, who is my co-founder and my CTO, and he does all the operations and stuff. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a smaller operation, whereas this other company grew to, when I left, they had 200 matchmakers already at that point. So I started with them when they had like 25. So I got a lot of different experiences from that. All good though. Like it was great.
I feel like, and I'll say this is me, okay? Hopefully you don't get offended by this. I'm a pussy. Okay.
Not offended at all. It's hard to offend me, Rob. It's really hard to offend me.
Good. It's hard to offend me too. Yeah, so we're on the same boat. Awesome. I think for me, so working in insurance, I'm our national trainer. So I teach people, and of all ages, how to sell insurance, and Medicare specifically is my specialty. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I deal with older people, and we're going to get into that because I got a couple questions for you on that. But
of course,
when it comes to teaching people, and I teach some of these guys and I help them pass their exams and things like that. Right.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, some of these guys are making like 7 figures. Mm-hmm. Right. And wow. I'm like, oh man, if only I had the balls to do my own thing. And I've had so many entrepreneurs on the show, and for me, this is my kind of my hobby, but my entrepreneurial focus for me. But if I didn't have the bills I had and the family, I probably would do my own thing. But I'm too much of a pussy to do it because I have just so much responsibility at this point. Now, if I was younger, I think it would be a little different. I think I'd be able to do it. And I probably could, but it's the probably that scares me. So talk a little bit about the probably. I know that was in your head too, and I always like to talk to entrepreneurs about the probably. Did you had to have had those conversations with yourself? What if I fail? Do I have to go back to the agency, or what's your plan B? Did you have a plan B?
I did have a plan B. I mean, sort of. Gosh. So the maybe and the probably and all the doubts, they were all there, just so you know. That's going to be there no matter what. I don't know one person that's like, oh yeah, I'm running, unless you're rolling in dough. I don't know if you're loaded rich already, trust fund baby, or already sold some companies. I don't know. I think anybody...
must be nice.
Must be nice. I like to MBN. Must be nice. All the maybes were there. Honestly, I could never have done it if it wasn't for a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to give my husband massive credit. Okay, he. If it wasn't for knowing that he was there kind of supporting, not financially supporting, really supporting me in this venture and being you can do this, Sophie, you can do this. There were, I would say most parts of me were very, very scared to do it. Okay. We depend as a family, we depend on both my income and my husband's income. So it wasn't one of those situations where, he was making so much that I could just, take a break, try out something new. If it didn't work, well. We have a mortgage, we have twins, we have We have a dog.
We're the middle class. We're the middle class, man.
We are the middle class. And we live in
100%.
San Diego. And it is so expensive.
It's even worse.
It's so painful. We pay the sunshine tax day and night. So, so it was scary. So, I had my husband's kind of emotional support in that and belief in me that felt very much like a safety net, like, hey, we're in this together, if it doesn't work. And he himself has been an entrepreneur. He was the CTO of a startup that he worked in for 8 years and ended up being acquired, which was amazing. And I watched him work like in the startup life when I was working at an agency. So I had less pressure and responsibility then, but I kind of had an idea of it's a roller coaster, and so, but knowing that he was backing me up and he was going to help me with hiring and operations and the finances and all that stuff really made it easier. And then I'll say I started working with individual clients, and I ended up having a client, and occasionally I work on success fees, meaning I still charge up front, but occasionally we set up a contract where they'll pay me up front for the work, and then there's a success fee at the end if I find them their partner, if they end up either getting married, moving in together, having a child. Like there's a bunch of stipulations that count as client success, or they're dating.
That's wild. That's wild, by the way. That's awesome.
Right. So if they're dating for like 6 months from the day of their first date, if they're still in an exclusive relationship, that counts as success. And so I actually had a couple clients on contracts like that, and I was successful. And so my success fees were substantial. And so I was able to have a little bit of financial runway, like a little even more of a security, little safety net to launch off on my own. And so, and it was nice. And that, at the time, I was a contractor for the other company, so it was completely fine. Like I had already kind of started my company while I was still with the larger agency. And so anyways, it was amazing that I was able to do that. That is so fucking
cool, man.
Yeah.
That is so fucking cool. Mm-hmm. I appreciate anyone that can take what they want to do and put it in reality. It's not an easy thing, right? I mean, and where you are, and I'm sure you can kind of look at this in retrospect. It's like where you are when you start is nowhere near where you are in the middle, at the end. And I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, you're never at the end. You're always in the middle.
Always in the middle.
You're always right. It's like you're always waiting for the fall and the success at the same time. It's a weird push and pull on either way.
Yeah, totally. It is. It's I'm not going to lie, it's super hard. It is so hard, but it is so fulfilling. And I'm really lucky because in the boutique matchmaking agency world, we have a community, we have hundreds of matchmakers, and we are so collaborative and supportive of one another. We have 2 major conferences every year, and we connect with each other, with matchmakers all over the country and all over the world. And so we share all of our kind of business ideas and everything with each other, just to support each other and help each other grow. So it's really an amazing community that I work in. And that's also what makes it doable, to be honest. It's like you would think that, there's so many matchmakers, they're my competition. It just doesn't feel that way. The right people find the right matchmaking agency for them, and we collaborate. We match our clients with each other's clients. We trade database members, like members of our dating directory. We help other matchmakers match their clients, and they help us match ours. In the end, it's a win-win, right? I call it like we're brokering our singles, and the more connections we can make, the better it is for both our our members and our paying clients.
And that's really cool because I got to tell you, like, that's very similar to the podcasting world. And I think it's the entertainment world in general, because when I got into this, I thought it was going to be me against the world. And I'll tell you, I've over the past year and a half, I've networked with so many great people that I talk to all the time. And we share interviews, we share best practices, we share a lot of really cool things and like new ideas, and I've started new shows with other people. So it's like, it's really cool how like-minded people just connect.
Very true.
And I feel that plays really well with like kind of what you do just in general, right? Now, your company, you offer matchmaking. You're a dating concierge.
Yep.
You're a dating coach. You have dating directories. And then we'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, about your event called Closer.
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 Like, we're going to get closer. We're going to get
closer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to put you in my pocket here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's cool that you have you kind of just don't have all your eggs in one basket, right? You kind of have a little bit of what a lot of people are looking for. And I guess the second thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is for my viewers who probably, some of my listeners probably aren't, in terms of money, probably aren't making a shit ton of money, right? What's the difference between the standard like matchmaking versus kind of what you do, and that's the executive matchmaking?
I would say, look, the reason why we call it executive matchmaking, it's like, imagine hiring an executive recruiter, right? It is a search. In and of itself, matchmaking itself, if you kind of just boil it down to the original essence, right? We get to know a person. Our client comes to us, they pay us. Our paying client comes to us. We interview them. We get all the nitty gritty, everything, where they're coming from, what their past was like, where are they going, what are they looking for, what stage of life are they in, and then we take into account obviously their criteria of what they're looking for in a partner. And I just want to be clear, I only work with people who, when they come to us and we interview them, like, we are aligned, right? Like, I'm aligned with them and what they're looking for. I believe that is, appropriate and reasonable. If I feel like the search is the parameters are too extreme, or I don't feel right about it, I happily will refer them to other matchmakers that could be a better fit. Like the relationship has to be a good match between us and the client as well, right?
I need a guy that's 6'6", has
Exactly.
roughly 1 inch hair, has no receding hairline,
Exactly.
is making $300,000 a year. You're like, all right, come on, man. Like,
right. And so, look, we work with male and female clients. Generally, we work with straight clientele. We have amazing LGBTQ matchmakers that we refer our LGBTQ people to, because that's where they recruit, that's their niche, that's what they do. So they'll hire us, we find out what they're looking for, and then they sign on, and we go out and find the matches, and we're interviewing each match as a potential introduction for them. The interviews are usually done over Zoom. Sometimes we meet them in person. It just depends. And even if someone's already been screened, like they're in our network, and let's say they were screened 6 months ago or 8 months ago for someone else, or right when they came in and there wasn't necessarily a match for them, we re-screen them again. So we'll re-interview them, we'll chat with them. If we think they're a good match for a client, we will share our client's profile with them as well. We find out if they're interested in meeting at that point. Then if they say yes, then we will tell our client, okay, we have a new introduction for you. We're excited. Here's why we think they're a great match. We'll usually give them 2 or 3 real match points about the person. Match points are like why we think you guys are aligned and could be your could be each other's person, right? And so essentially we're going on the first date for them, really. Like we're just asking a lot of the questions that people are usually just scared to ask. And that way they can focus on just connecting with the person in the moment and not necessarily going through all of the surface level, what I call level 1 conversation, which is just fact exchange, like, oh, so this is what I do for a living, this is where I grew up. And, we cover a lot of that for both parties, so they can really just sit down and start connecting on a more present moment, authentic level, and see what's there.
I like that. And to go along with that, I read all of your testimonials on your website. So I'm going to read the one I thought was the most telling for me. Okay.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Yes. So success, exclamation point. Sorry. I met my husband on the second match that Sophie set me up with.
I know this one.
It was an instant connection. Sophie was fantastic. Another exclamation point. She was kind, always available, and most importantly, she truly listened to what I felt I needed and wanted. The fact that she took the time to get to know me gave me more hope and comfort. Honestly, she could not have found me a better partner. I am now happily married with a baby girl. I really love my family. Thank you, Sophie. That's some crazy shit, man. Not only did you find this person, her forever person, but they had a kid, man.
They have two now. They have two now. Yeah. They had a second one.
You gotta clap to that. That's fucking awesome, man. That's a testament of all the testimonials you had. Testimonials. I can't fucking talk today. That I read, and it was like that was truly like. I just felt like that was an embodiment. Like if you wrote a book, you should have that on the back of the book or on the inside page.
Okay, so can I tell you a little bit about that story?
Yes,
because that's absolutely a great story. So that's a client. So I set her up. So I remember exactly who it is. Obviously, like when they get married and have a baby, that never leaves your brain. It's really, burnt in there and into my heart as well. I remember she was very wary of matchmaking, but she was like over the apps and she was just like, I'm just going to try this. And she told me also that she didn't drink alcohol. She's like, I'm not a drinker. I just don't drink. No, like there wasn't a like addiction thing. I mean, this girl actually is a physician, young physician. Yeah. In Southern California. And, she was in her 30s and I set her up on one date. And I remember the first match was this guy, and I told him in the interview, I said, she doesn't drink alcohol. Are you okay with that? He said, yeah, not a problem. I said, okay, just making sure, because I have clients who don't drink, and it's, like they're usually not interested in only meeting people who also don't drink. They're fine with someone who drinks, but it's nice to know ahead of time so that on the date, they're not like, so why aren't you drinking? They know ahead of time. So I set her up on the date. The guy ended up kind of sucking because he showed up and kind of pushed her and was like, I know you don't drink, but you actually could really use a glass of wine. Like you could relax. Like that was what she had a crappy date, the first date, because he showed up different on the date than he did with me, right? Like a lot of times when they'll speak to me, they'll tell me kind of what I want to hear so they get to meet the person. And meanwhile, he showed up and he kind of gave her a little shit about it. And it's fine. Like he wasn't like horrific or anything. He didn't do anything egregious, but I told him she didn't drink and he pushed her. And so she wasn't happy, and she said, okay, like that kind of sucked for me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I told him and he said it was fine. So anyway, moving on.
Control people,
couldn't
man.
Control it.
Like, especially, like, no offense, especially with guys.
Yes, he was having his own insecurities about it, clearly. And so it made him uncomfortable that she wasn't drinking. And so then I had another guy for her. And at the time she had told me, look, I prefer men with no kids, but I'm open to someone who has children that wants more. So a guy he was divorced with a child. And so I told her about the match and she said, well, not ideal, but I said, but he's, like I said, like the guy like checks off the boxes. He definitely wants more kids, all the things. She said, sure. Then at the last minute, like 2 days before the date, she texts me and goes, I changed my mind. This whole process is not for me. She said, you're matching me with people that I'm not aligned with. I don't want to date someone with kids. She just kind of had a little spiral, right? Which we deal with all the time. People have spirals all the time. She got in her head. She decided, okay, matchmaking's not for me. Like really, legitimately said, I think I just want to stop my contract. I don't want my money back. This is not for me. And I couldn't. I was like, no, listen. If you're not comfortable meeting this guy with the children, totally fine. We can cancel the date. I completely understand. We'll change. I said, like, if that's feeling uncomfortable and you're realizing that through the process, let's just give me a chance to get you on another match, etc. Like, don't give up now. It's been one match, like one intro. She was signed up for 6 months, which is a minimum of 6 introductions for that particular contract. And so I had to kind of talk her off the ledge. And I remember she couldn't even get on the phone. She's like, I have laryngitis. I can't talk. So we were like in a texting thing. Anyway, I talked her off the ledge. She said, fine, I'll wait. I'll give it another shot. The next match was her husband.
Ooh.
The next match. And I remember it so clearly because I had to go on a trip with my family at the time. I set it up before I left. They met on, I'm crazy that I remember this. They met on New Year's. They met on December 30th, like right before New Year's. And then they were like super into each other. And then the next day they spent New Year's Eve together. And then I got a bunch of texts while I was away in Israel saying like, oh, we're spending New Year's Eve together. That was amazing. Like, and they were engaged really fast. After that, they were engaged like 2 or 3 months later. It was like a whirlwind romance. So anyway, it was a very cute story, but just an example of how a spiral, she got in her head about everything and just was ready to walk away because the experience it was a little uncomfortable, which dating is uncomfortable. It can be and it will be, but if people allow others to support them through it and just navigate through, right, the discomfort. I mean, I'm just so glad that I talked her off the ledge because that was the next one was her person. So it's really cute.
That is really cool. And
yeah.
I got to tell you, so I've been with my fiance for 13 years.
Nice.
We've seen friends get married, meet, married, divorced, and remarried. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And we always tell people, because the first questions are, hey, when you get married? Hey, when are you going to have kids? And I don't know if we're going to do either.
That's perfectly fine.
We're just chill, man. And I always tell people, because I think it's the stigma that people have, right? You have to get married. You have to have kids. And we break the stigma in that, like, she never really wanted to have kids. I did, but after being with her, like, I understood that's what she wanted when I met her. And now I'm at a point where, like, I don't know if I want to have kids. And that's where we're at, so like people always ask, and I always tell people, like, this is where we are. And yeah, maybe it's weird because, like, she's 36, I'm 37. Like, it's weird for people in their 30s now to say, yeah, we don't know if we want to do that. But we feel comfortable. And I always tell people, like, my mom's been married 3 times. Her mom's been married 5 times. And I don't want to be, like, part of the statistics.
Right.
So, like, if it works, why
if it's not broke, why fix it? And honestly, I will tell you, I just want to correct you. I don't think it's weird, and I see it all the time. I work with clients. Some of my clients don't want to have children. They're in their 30s or in their 40s. Some do. Some are like, I'm on the fence. It's all about finding my person, right? I would say it's not weird at all. And I think, like, your level of comfort in it is what's most important. And I will go so far as to say that when people start kind of badgering you and your fiance with those questions, I kind of welcome you to think about this. Usually what people are not comfortable with within themselves, they don't welcome in others. And so it's really kind of more about them than it is about you. You guys are chill, right? Like you guys are good, and this need for others. So why aren't you having kids? So what's the thing? It's like that's their issue, actually. Like something in their marriage, probably, or their relationship, or their decisions, isn't sitting well with them. And so that's why they're, you know what I mean? What you don't welcome within yourself, you're not going to welcome in another person. So,
well, I always tell people, it's like, okay, all right. The first thing people say is, well, why aren't you having kids? And I'm like, well, let me tell you why, okay? And like, look, I grew up, when I was 6, I wanted to be a doctor and have like 2 or 3 kids, okay? We all have that fucking thing. Especially,
the dream.
Right? When you're in your like, when you grew up, I don't know, I'm not going to ask you how old you are because
you can ask me. I'm totally open. I'm 46 years old. Go for it. Okay. I'm an open book.
So I'm 37. So we're within that range, right?
Yeah.
When we were growing up, it's have kids, go to college, get married, have a house, right? And I don't have any of that. And I think that some people where they have kids, they're like, well, I have a kid. Why don't you have a kid? Guys should have kids. And I'm like, are you trying to make me fucking miserable? Like
they are annoyed. They are annoyed that they have kids, and it's okay because I get annoyed that I have kids too sometimes, right? So you're like, why aren't you joining the misery train and like having somebody hijack your entire life? Like, what's up with that? Why do I have to do this by myself?
On Saturdays, I wake up at 10 a.m.
It's amazing.
If normally right now, I'll tell you. Typically, and I'm getting all the fucking Facebook memories. Normally, right now, I'm in Punta Cana. Me and her, normally, we just fucking bounce. Yeah. We decided this year that we would kind of save it for next year and kind of have a staycation this year because the past couple of years we've done that. But I put my normally I have a vetted professional watch my dogs while I'm gone. But we're in fucking Punta Cana. And you can't do this shit with kids, man. You got to make sure they're not with a serial killer. So it's kind of a weird thing when you're my age when it comes to that stuff, but I don't give a fuck, man. And I tell people, and I feel bad because my mom wants me to have kids, and she'll get the fiance drunk on Easter, whatever. And you're gonna have kids, right? Like she's here, have another beer, like, and that's just it is what it is, And my mom's like very traditional, and she loves her, she loves me. I think she wants something to take care of because she's got like 32 pets and my brother at home, but
that makes sense.
Let's talk a little bit about dating in the 21st century.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm way past that shit. I never so I'm 37. I never used Tinder, any of the fucking apps. Like when I met people, it was like, hey, you went to a bar, you bought people a drink. It wasn't weird.
You approached them.
Yeah, we danced. I was like, all right, this is cool. All right. Do you want to text tomorrow? Like, or do you want to hang out? Like, it was a way different experience. What's it like now? Trying to set people up in this wild area of dating apps and like not. It's like a almost inhuman approach.
I love that you said that. So the way that you dated is what I describe as more authentic, organic, human, and real. You interacted with people without having all their stats ahead of time. You would just talk to someone based on how they looked, their energy, the way they looked at you, and following kind of what was alive between you and the person in the moment.
Your specific attraction, right?
Just literally what was happening between you and that person, whatever it was, the conversation.
The gut. The gut,
because it's in your body, right? So love and attraction and connection happen in the heart and in the body. They don't happen in the mind. And these days, connection and dating have become transactional. People are on apps looking for their partner and setting parameters like they do when they're ordering a product on Amazon or bestbuy.com or ordering their Starbucks, right? I want it extra hot, tall, this kind of milk, dark, light, 3 shots, 1 shot, I mean, and so what happens is every time they show up on these dates that they're meeting online, it's like they're evaluating, right? They're evaluating and they're being evaluated. Like, is this person going to be a good potential partner for me? And it's completely against how humans are meant to connect. And so my goal is, although I am connecting them, still sharing these pieces of information, like, okay, this person is this old, they're this tall, this is what they do, etc. I mean, my goal is to try so hard to teach people how to be human again in this space. I really feel that the dating space is very broken right now, and dating apps aren't going anywhere, so I'm not damning them, and I'm not saying that's it, fuck the apps, get off them. That's not what I'm saying. Man. No, it's really horrible. So there are ways to you have to adapt, right? And so I guess that will bring me over to talk about authentic relating and the book. Yes, Ryle Castano is one of my he's my co-creator for the Closer events. He wrote the book on authentic relating. He didn't found the movement itself. It's a practice that's been around for many, many years. I would say he's probably one of the world leading experts in it, because he did write the book, and he co-founded Art International, which is the largest authentic relating training company in the world. It's a really beautiful practice of really slowing down, welcoming things within yourself, revealing your experience in the moment with another person, okay? Sharing the impact, noticing your assumptions as you're communicating. It's not designed for dating, it's designed for all of life, all communication, all relationships, every interaction you have with another person, this can apply to. And what it does is it really breeds nourishment, emotional intimacy. It breeds curiosity. It gets people out of their heads and into their bodies and their hearts and in the moment with each other. And that's what's missing today, because people are going on these dates like interviews, and then they're wondering, why am I going on so many dates and I don't like anybody and they don't like me? And most people I talk to feel very, very deflated with the process. They feel disconnected. It's almost like the more dates they go on, the more alone they feel. And so I guess what my goal is to help people learn these skills, which, by the way, I didn't even know these skills until a couple of years ago, right? Is really to learn how to turn these experiences into an opportunity to just be seen, feel heard, and allow someone else to feel that way too, regardless of the outcome of the connection. And when we drop our attachment to the outcome and we get out of our heads and we get into our bodies and our hearts and focus really on what's happening and revealing what's happening in the present moment, that's where real connection actually happens. So that's kind of my whole jam when it comes to the dating space.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it, man. I mean, maybe
super
I could.
hard.
I always tell her, I'm like, look, if we ever break up, I'll be a monk. Like, I'm gonna go.
That's what my husband says. That's what my husband says. He's
just,
like, I'm not doing it again.
Like, if we don't work out, like, what is there for me? And maybe it's just me being stupid, but I just feel like relationships are they gotta be a 50-50. They gotta be a you give a little, you get a little. It's kind of it's a, I don't want to say it's a transactional relationship, because it's not, right? Maybe today I need this much and you need
actually
this little.
Let me challenge you on 50-50. Relationships are, if there's a 100 total there, relationships are sometimes I only have 20%, right, in me. And I'm hoping, that my husband has the rest of it. And if he doesn't, that's okay too, right? Sometimes both people show up to each other on any given day with only resourced a certain amount. So it's actually, oftentimes I would say it's not even 50-50. Sometimes it's 30-70. Sometimes it's 40-40, and both people are like, oh, but if you could actually acknowledge, right?
Yeah.
But if you can acknowledge when you're at 20 and your fiance also may be at 20 or 30, if that's acknowledged between you two, it's so much easier to get through that time, that moment, as opposed to the expectation, right? That someone else is going to make you feel a certain way or have a certain experience, right? It's really that communication of where you're at, reveal where you're at, right? So yeah, I mean, it's not always 50-50. But
Yeah, I mean, that's important. I mean, I tell her, I'm like, sometimes I never had depression in my life.
Good.
But I start to get sometimes seasonal depression.
Yeah.
Where it's 5 fucking degrees, and for some reason I wake up and I'm like, I just don't feel like getting out of bed today. And I tell her, I'm like, hey, today's one of those days, and I'm, and I feel like she'll turn it up. And, there's certain things that I can know, and I can tell by the tone of her voice. When you're with someone for a long time, I mean, you've been for 13 years. When you're with someone and they have a tone of voice, you're like, hey, what's going on? And if they say there's nothing wrong or whatever, and it could go either way with men and women, right?
Right.
If a woman says it, a guy says it, I feel like it has the same undertone. It's like, hey, look, I can hear you. What's really going on?
Right, exactly.
And sometimes you can get to it. Sometimes you can't. I mean, people are complex, man. It's not a simple thing, and we're not fucking psychologists. That's actually what I wanted to do growing up.
You still can.
I know. We actually met in psychology class. I took adolescent psychology in college. That's where we met. And
that's sweet.
Kind of a weird thing how we met, but psychology is just it's a fickle beast, and if you're not a professional, it's hard to navigate. So if you're listening to this, you're a young guy, and someone, or you're a young female, and someone says to you, hey, I'm fine, but you tell there's something off, you don't have to like be over aggressive, but man, sometimes, hey, look, I'm here. As long as you say I'm here for you, or what do you need from me, I think sometimes that means the world to some people. For me, it does.
I agree. I think it's not about trying to fix and solve, right? Because I think everyone wants to, right? Because it's uncomfortable to be with someone else's discomfort, right? You want to make it stop because it's uncomfortable for you, right? But really, I think the most precious way you can be of support, of service to others is to be with them the way that they would need it. How can I support you? Do you want to be supported in this time? Right? As opposed to, let me give you no, you're not okay. Let's talk about it. Sometimes there's a time and a place. Sometimes they're not resourced enough to go into why they're upset in the moment. And they just, sometimes it's just about holding space for someone or just letting them be, right?
Big time. Hey, the wifey says that to me. It's like, I know. It's like, hey, look, what's going on? No, I don't. I'm like, hey, look, all right. You do you.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, you get that, especially when you've been with someone for a long time.
I get it. Yes. My husband and I have and by the way, we've learned this through authentic relating, and I highly recommend this practice. And by the way, we're about to launch an authentic relating kind of authentic dating course. That's going to be really affordable. So under $500. We're going to be launching that really soon over Zoom. It's amazing. But, you could take them online as well. And really, my husband and I, we have, sometimes I'm having my own little spiral meltdown, and he will let me know, I can hold this for you right now. What is it? Lay it on me. Or he get code word, I'm not in the place for it. Totally cool. I don't take it personally. I go work it out for myself. I work it out with my coach, my therapist, my friend, whoever, right? I do not have to have that pressure on my relationship to always pull me out when I'm in a bad place. Because everybody gets into a bad place. multiple times a day. It's like, like,
Oh yeah.
Right. So sometimes
We as humans, it's not perfect.
right. Sometimes I can do it and I can be there for the person, and sometimes I can't. And this, by the way, I'll tie this into dating. People are always scared on dates, like especially initial dates, to be like people usually try to show up as like this like glossy version of themselves, the ambassador. There's always a first date. Like I used to have a first date, Sophy, right? Oh, I'm so easygoing, like chill, totally not high maintenance, not anxious, totally fine, right? Not needy. Those are all the things, right? I'm chill, that especially women feel like they need to portray, and men feel like they need to portray certain qualities, right? And
I'm strong.
I'm strong. Yeah, look, I'm not phased.
I'm actually tall, bro,
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Like, if you're having a really bad day or whatever it is, right? Like, if the person who you're sitting across from cannot, like, be there with you, if they're, like, turned off by you being, like, your real human self, do you think that, like, they're your person, period? Like, let's just be real with like who we are and the experience we're having. I always tell people after I've done so much work on myself. I've done so many courses on this, right? And experiential in groups. And what I've seen is the thing that people most resonate with each other and connect to are the messiest parts of being human, not all the fun, easy, joyful things. People actually connect on shared struggle. Like, our bodies produce oxytocin, which is the connecting hormone, the love hormone, when there is a shared struggle. So it's okay to just share whatever it is you're struggling with, even if it's on a first date.
Be real, man. Don't be this fake shit. And it sucks. I wouldn't fare well in some of the dating world because I'm very real.
Yes,
I'm very real. However, I'm 5'5", so
I love it.
Being a short dude in today's, it's like females want.
How tall is your fiance?
She's also my height, maybe 5'4". We're right there. So,
oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's good, but I wouldn't fare well with a lot of dating apps where it's like you got to be 5'8". It's like, oh well, I'm fucked. It's like, but. You know what? Here's my thing, right? As a male, I'm getting older. I got the grays to prove it. Whatever. As you get older, you really kind of you know what you want, and you're not afraid to tell people what you want, and you recognize the things you're good at. You recognize the things you're bad at. You recognize, like, I'm never gonna grow a fucking full head of hair anymore. That was in the 20s, right? So it's it's just a different world in my head compared to 10 years ago, where I'm like, I could do whatever. Maybe I'll grow dreadlocks. It's like, it's a weird, it's like a weird thing. It's like, maybe I'll sprout an inch. No, motherfucker, you're not growing an inch. It's not so it's just and I'm sure you can attest to that. It's like, it's different when you get older, and I appreciate when I talk to someone else that's my age, older, around my age, where they understand that fact, and I feel like I can connect sometimes with people a little bit better because, or at least people with that are real. Because I'm in the Northeast, so when you're in the Northeast in the United States, we like to speak our mind, and we don't give a fuck what people think. So, it's that stigma we have up here, but we can recognize when other people do the same thing, and I feel like I appreciate that more to a certain degree. Unless someone says go fuck yourself, and then I get mad. I don't have that happen often, but it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all about speaking. I'm all about speaking my mind, and I'll tell you something I learned also, and I've hopefully been, like I said, also passing this on to the people that I encounter, work with, talk to, like you, for example. I always thought that I was like really authentic, right? Until I really sat down and looked inward, and I was like, I'm actually managing a lot, right? Like, I'm controlling how much I reveal when I reveal it, but for the most part, I've always been the like, tell it like it is. I don't sugarcoat anything. And I think there is something really special and wonderful about people who can be like us, who can be really authentic. The part that I had to really learn about, and I think most of us have to learn still, is the relating part. So it's one thing, it's not just about spilling out your authentic self, your thoughts, your feelings, but actually the part that I had to really learn, and I think we all do, is staying in connection with someone once you've actually revealed your thoughts and emotions, right? How does it feel to hear that? Here's what I think and feel, blah, 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 blah. What was it like? How did you experience that? Share your impact. What was it like? What's like actually staying in connection to know what it's like for another person to experience you and what you just shared. So that's kind of something that like I said, I'm still learning to apply it day in and day out, but it's truly one of the most important, I would say, important things that I've learned over the last couple of years that I think applies, excuse me, so much to the dating space and also to just any relational space. So,
especially with traumas, right? And
oh gosh, yeah.
I'll say this as a male. I've had traumas in my life, and up until last year, I had a very specific trauma that I dealt with that I won't talk about here.
Right.
That I told my fiance that I never told another human being, not even my mom or dad or anything. And she had a trauma to share with me that I had no idea.
There you go.
And it was
right there.
Wild for us to have been together for, at that point, 12 years.
Wow.
That neither of us knew this trauma we both had when we were younger, that we thought we couldn't share with other people.
Right. You manage it.
Could. And if you're listening to this and you're younger or whatever, even if you're older, I have older listeners too. And there's something that you think that's so fucked up that you have to eat, and especially guys do it all the time, man. And I get it. They do. We have to be strong, and we have to be, people that we can't be the helpless, right? Growing up, taking a lot of psychology classes and being the person I am, I'm an advocate for being able to talk to other people about your traumas. Go talk to a professional, whatever you need to do.
Right.
And it's important. And not to derail our conversation, but
oh no, this is my jam. I mean, this is like what I work with with my clients all the time. So this is definitely down my lane. Yeah.
I do have to say, I had one person this past week that I worked with, I hired. She was an awesome human being, and she passed away this week.
I'm so
Her name was
sorry.
Monica Metz. So I wanted to give a shout out to her and her family. She was a great human being. She was struggling with a lot of stuff for over the years, and it's the last time I saw her was a couple of years ago, and it's tough when it comes to stuff like that. So I always tell people, there comes a point where you do need to talk to somebody. With your male, female, they, them, whatever your internal struggle is, it's go talk to somebody.
Yes.
It's tough.
Yes. It's so hard. And can I speak to that for a quick moment?
Absolutely.
So as I went on, I started to really, truly heal my trauma. I had quite a bit growing up, some big capital T stuff, capital T trauma. And I did not do I had talk therapy kind of navigating me through life, but I did not really do any inner real healing of trauma until I was 45, 44, And so what I realized when I started really healing and I healed using internal family systems therapy, and also authentic relating is a very healing practice as well. And what I realized was, oh my gosh, how hard it was dating and managing all these traumas and trying to make sure, like, because there's so much shame wrapped around them and grief that you haven't processed. And so you always, people who walk around, people who are single, dating, having experienced trauma, oftentimes what I see now, and just so you know, we have a certified internal family systems, both our coaches, Justin and Ryle, are trauma informed and amazing. And so we work with people as they're dating to really start to heal this stuff as they're going through the dating process. Because the thing is, when you haven't processed it and it feels heavy within you, you think that it's going to be too much or too heavy for another person. And so you withhold it and you suppress it and you wait and you manage it. And the thing is, once you're able to heal and really go in and like be that kind person to yourself that you've always needed, like when you come home to yourself, revealing those things to another person is not heavy or traumatic for that person. And then you get to be who you really are, right? Like your true self.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of work around that. So if there are any listeners that feel like they're too much, like their story is too much to share, and they have to wait until someone really likes them to share who they really are, what they've been through, just know that that's not the case. And we have so many wonderful resources that are available, and our coaching resources are available at a pretty affordable rate. Just know that help is out there, not just through us, but you're not too much for the right person. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And that gets me into my next question.
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions left
Go ahead.
before we get into the end of this.
Okay.
Number one, and it's the first thing I thought about because I'm a morbid human being. I watch too much ID channel.
Yeah.
What does your vetting process look like to make sure people aren't set up with serial killers?
Okay.
First thing that popped into my head.
Thankfully, we have no serial killers. So
All right, good.
First of all, we interview everybody over Zoom, sometimes in person. We also run 2 different background checks on every person, both paying client and members of our dating directory, which it is complimentary to be in our dating directory, but you have to be vetted. And so we meet you, we Google you, we run you through 2 background checks. Now, these are not FBI. We're not taking anyone's social security number, but they are paid background checks. So they do pull up any public records on top of some very deep online sleuthing. So we really dive deep and make sure there isn't something weird, or like, for example, if they're telling us one thing, but their online profile looks like, their LinkedIn doesn't line up, or we do a lot of recruiting on websites like LinkedIn, because it's not, you see somebody on LinkedIn, you kind of see what they've done, where they've been, their resume, basically. So yeah, we really we put the dots together. So we do all of that, and people do that these days anyways when they're online dating, right? But that's time and energy wasted. We do all that for you. So anybody that we bring forward as just to even be in our database or a client, you have to have gone through all of that first before we move forward.
That's all right. That leaves me feeling a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, working in the insurance industry, you get some crazy shit. They're like, yeah, I'm fine. And then we do background checks, and people are like, okay, I might have punched a kid at a McDonald's, 10 years ago because, they were being annoying. Or it's like some crazy shit. And part of that human experience. But so let's end with this before we get into a little bit more about where to find your services.
Yeah.
And I thought this was important, especially with the Golden Bachelor and some of the stuff that have come up. For you and some of the things that you do, how does age factor in? I personally deal with Medicare, and I deal with a lot of older people, and I feel like there's this stigma about older people that you can't find love again, or once you get to a certain point, it's like, fuck it. And I feel like, part of what really made me want to interview you and what I was interested in is, how does that factor to you? Do you have clients that are older that are like, hey, I don't really care. Let's, just find me somebody.
Right. So, first of all, everybody deserves love and partnership and companionship at any age. People start over all the time. They become widowed. They get divorced. Maybe they even haven't found maybe they've had some partners here and there, and they haven't found their like forever person, right? Age factors in. It's a factor, and it can become a challenge when people are stuck on the numbers, right? Sadly, look, you know how it goes, right? Like men always want to date younger women, right? And women are way more chill about it. Like women are totally down to date their age and somewhat older, right? And younger. And so I can't make that go away. Like I can't change that and it also ties into kind of just the way humans are wired, right? Like human beings, the human, race is, we're wired, men are wired such that they are wired to propagate, the human species, right? So it's seeking out fertile partners to spread the seed, okay? Women are wired to create these more these family units, right? Create families and communities. And so they're much more wired kind of more for monogamy, and the age doesn't factor in to that. And so, but I can't change that, right? We encourage people not to focus on age as a number, but I will just tell you straight out, I would say most of our male clients and members, most of them are open to dating kind of up to their age, maybe a little bit older. I die for a guy who's so evolved and doesn't give a shit and is like, yeah, I'll date 5 years older than me. I don't care. Like, cool. Like I want an amazing person, right? And they're not just stuck on, oh my God, I need to have someone 10 years younger than me. But listen, like everyone has their preference, and as long as it's reasonable to us, we will, we'll address their criteria. I think when it comes to women who are 50s and 60s and 70s, it becomes harder to find men within their age range that want to date within their age parameters, right? Like within their own demographic. And so those searches are a lot harder. They take up a lot more time, recruiting efforts, energy, and money. They're much more expensive. We have found amazing ways to address that as well. And I am always very honest with all potential clients and members about what I think, based on my experience, is the best, most results-driven, effective way for us to find them great matches. So I'm always happy to have that conversation. But yeah, age is a factor. There's no two ways around it. It is. It's a factor. I wish it wasn't, but it is. So, yeah.
Now, when you're setting up your clients, obviously you have a duty, right, to the people who are paying you to, do what you can that's best for them. But there's a fine line, right, that you have to play that's between the person that's paying you, but also the person you might be setting them up with, or getting them to that destination, right? Like, how do you play that line functionally without crossing it?
Well, I just think like I'm not getting these people out on dates just to get them out on dates. Every time we set up an introduction, we feel that there is a potential for this person, this match, to be our client's person, and our client is going to be their person. So we really do have both our paying clients, and if the match is not a paying member, if they're a complimentary member, we have everybody's interests at heart, because it does not behoove us to create what we call lazy matches, right? Just to get them out, right? Because then it's going to be a negative experience. And granted, sometimes it's really hard to predict. Sometimes I think a match is going to be amazing, and it it can fall flat. And then there's times where I'm just like, I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna go, like, I'm not 100%, you're never 100% sure, but I'm saying like I'm less confident about it, and it takes off. So this is not like rocket science, everybody's like emotions play in, and where they're at, and all their projections, their unresolved issues, stuff that sometimes we have no idea about, right? So but I would say we always, no matter what, we always have both parties best interests at heart. We want the best for both people in any introduction. And that's why I really try to coach people into having a truly like wonderful, nourishing interaction with each other, regardless of what the outcome is, because you can learn something new about yourself from every single new conversation you have, regardless of whether you're ever going to see that person again. So that it's not time wasted, it's not energy wasted. It means something.
I like that. So let's end with this.
Okay.
You had mentioned before we hit record that your approach was different than other agencies. It was a little more holistic.
Yeah.
How do you approach, the setting up of your clients and the things that you guys do that differentiates you from other agencies that do what you do?
Right. So I would say like our to me, kind of the cornerstones of conscious living and connecting for me in my personal life have been doing work using parts work and internal family systems, as well as authentic relating, right? And so really I have 2 highly trained coaches on my team that offer both of these things. Plus we offer these experiences and this work, doing the work, right? In our events and the courses we teach and the coaching that I offer, as well as Justin and Ryle on my team. And so really what we're here to do is make sure that as we are matching people and they're dating, this is going to be a vehicle for growth and healing for them. Because as you're going and meeting new people and all the stuff is going to come up, right? Like this process is a mirror to you, like where you need to grow and heal, and so that you can actually be like a conscious part of a sustainable relationship. So it isn't just based on this like initial like, oh my God, you're sexy, I want to sleep with you, the initial chemistry. Yeah. Those are just chemicals, right? And so I think what we really do is bring people into a more conscious connection with themselves through this process, so that they can more compassionately and consciously connect with others as we are making these introductions. So the two, like the coaching and the inner work together really well in conjunction with these introductions and the process itself. And so it becomes really much more transformative versus transactional, which is what most of dating is, especially if you're just doing that, the quick online in and out interview process, right? This is truly like my goal is to change the trajectory of people's lives. Okay. It truly is. And to me, this is the way to do that.
Love it. Well, look, for one, it was a pleasure getting to chat with you.
Thank you.
Especially considering you're on vacay, so I feel like I should be even more thankful you took the time out of your vacation to hang out with me. Do me a favor, talk a little bit about where people can find your content, what you got going on, because I know you mentioned you have a really affordable thing that's coming out. Talk a little bit about that before we end today.
Yeah, so my website is www.sophy.love. So Sophy, Sophie with a Y, .love.
Great website, by the way. Whoever
did
it, it's a very nice website.
My husband, Michael Singer, another credit goes to him.
He's very good at what he does.
He is. He's a good CTO, among other things.
Awesome.
And my Instagram is Matchmaker Sophy, also Sophie with a Y. It's really easy. You can find out all about everything on our website. Also on my Instagram, there's a link in the bio. You can just click Get Started, once you fill out, the profiles are completely internal and private, so no one sees them other than our team. We offer you the option of, being a complimentary member, and we would contact you if you are going to be considered as a match for a client. We also have the options to chat with us about services. And the nice thing is once you're in our directory, in our community, we are going to let you know about all the things that are up and coming. One of the fun things we have coming up are office hours coaching with me and with Ryle as well. And so these are drop-in Zoom coaching options. I'll have them weekly, multiple times a week, and you can really drop in and have access to myself and other coaches on my team to help kind of reframe your dating experience. And it's at a fraction of the cost that it would cost to hire us one-on-one, right? So we have that coming up really soon, actually right after January 1st, that's starting. So we'll be sending out announcements about all that, as well as our events, which are totally affordable as well. You'll get to learn authentic relating during the events while you connect with other singles. We'll be offering online stuff. So yeah, that's where to find me.
That's awesome. Well, look, so my podcast you can find anywhere you listen to every podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am part of a podcast network called the Deluxe Edition Network, a collective of a bunch of really cool podcasts. And I have to say, it's been a really cool experience being with those guys. Podcasts of the month, they have 2 podcasts every month. It's the Deluxe Edition podcast with Casey and Ray and the Stephen Crypto Show. Hopefully I can network this out. Maybe we can get you some more interviews.
I would love that.
Podcasts.
And actually, we just started our podcast, and we just recorded our first
some
episode.
Stuff about that. That's awesome.
Yes, it's called The Conscious Matchmaker. So stay tuned. That is coming. We're just editing it and we just started it. We're excited to just kind of riff on all things conscious dating, relating, trauma, you name it. We're going to talk about all the stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. It's a cool experience, and I really appreciate that you have the hubby involved with everything you do.
He's amazing.
So, yeah, that's got to be really cool to be able to experience that together. So, look, you have a fucking great vacation.
Thank you.
When you're done with this, go chug a fucking margarita.
I am.
And
I will.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and enjoy it. Have fun.
Rob, thank you. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. A true joy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You have a great vacation.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Drink O'Clock podcast, where fascinating people from all over the world share their stories over a drink. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform to catch up on past episodes and stay up to date on new releases. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future guests, the team at Drink O'Clock would love to hear from you. You can find them on most social media at Drink O'Clock Pod. Until next time, stay classy and remember, people, it's always happy hour somewhere. Cheers.